everyone, and welcome to today's workshop. My name is Becky, and we're going to be talking all about the new SEO and AI ranking formula. We're going to walk through the latest trends and the latest strategy for getting your lawn or landscape company ranked in the places where your clients are searching. Scott is going to walk us through the workshop.
Thanks, Becky. Hey, everyone. It's really great to see you all. Really excited for today's session. Really excited to talk about some of the latest trends, the latest strategies for getting your lawn or landscaping company ranked in the places where your clients are searching. Historically, when we think about SEO, we think about where your customers search when they need your services. And historically, we think about Google, right? Almost exclusively, it was Google for the last decade. They would go to Google, they would type in lawn care near me, landscaping in my area, best contractors in my area. Type Google into the chat here if that's been your sense of kind of, where you thought everyone was looking. There was a little bit of time before that when they were going to Yahoo, and there's a little bit of time when Bing was a little bit more in the mix. But predominantly, Google has been the 800-pound gorilla in the industry, the number one place. There's a little bit of a shift happening now, though. I wonder, are you guys, your family, using some sort of generative AI search platforms like ChatGPT, Claude, or Perplexity? Let me know in the chat if you are. Just type in your tool of choice into the chat. I know some of us are, some of us aren't, but I'm going to take a little bit of time today about the fact that some of your customers are starting to use those platforms extensively, right? They're all day in communication with their AI chatbot of choice, like ChatGPT, either the app on their phone or the desktop version, asking it questions, asking about the best restaurants in the area, the best service providers in the area. And we're starting to see a little bit of a shift toward your customer looking in those platforms. And that's what we call, there's kind of a debate on the terminology. Is it AEO or is it GEO? Answer engine optimization is AEO, which historically would have been things like your Alexa device, would have been things like Siri on your cell phone. And then GEO is actually generative engine optimization, which is more of these new platforms like Claude and ChatGPT. Either way, whatever you call it, I think we can all agree we want to come up when our customers are looking for our services in our local market. Yes or yes, right? And the answer is absolutely yes. So on today's session, we're going to talk about the SEO strategies that ring true, that you need to put in place to get ranked for your most important keywords. We're going to talk a little bit about GEO, generative engine optimization, AI ranking, as well as answer engine optimization, where things are headed in that regard. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and we're going to get right into it. So just bear with me for a second here. Okay. Here we go. So we do actually have a workbook, so a fully updated workbook for you guys that's just going to help you kind of checklist this through. It's going to help you think about what you need to be putting in place on your website with your SEO strategy and off your website as well. If you want to download that, you can go to wslandscapemarketing.com/SEO. Mark or Becky is going to drop that into the chat for you guys, so you can just click there and get that as well. And when it comes to SEO, this whole strategy around coming up in the non-paid listings where our customers are looking, where you're not paying per click, or not paying per listing, or not paying per lead, this is just part of your overall digital marketing strategy for your lawn and landscape company, right? And that falls into our growth engine for lawn and landscape companies. And the way we think about it is we've got to drive leads. We've got to maximize conversion of those visitors into leads, those leads into sales, those sales into repeat and referral customers that use us again and again. And then we've got to optimize the results, right? We've got to figure out, if we're spending money on digital marketing, if we're spending money on SEO and paid search and all these different things, how much money are we making at the end of the day? Having the tracking dialed in and then making strategic adjustments to double down and spend more effectively on the things that are working right now in the moment based on the data, where we're not guessing, but we know, okay, here's how much we spent. Here's how many leads we generated. Here's how much of a return on investment we generated down to the source. So what did we earn from SEO? What revenue did we earn from paid search? What paid channel, etc. And I really found that when you've got this whole model dialed in, you can consistently grow the business, you can consistently add crew members, and you can keep the business in a constant state of momentum. The data tells us this is netting leads, sales, and revenue, right? So in this case, 5,246 invested in their marketing strategy, 146 leads generated, average of $35.94 per lead. And you can see a lot of these are coming directly from the map on organic results down at the bottom. So 67 from map and organic right there. And so as we zoom in here today on the growth engine, these are the things we want to put in play to be on track to triple your sales every 2 to 3 years in your lawn and landscape business. And then in today's session, we're going to focus predominantly on the organic side of the equation, right? That's not to say it's the only thing, but that's what we're going to focus on today, making sure we're set up to come up in those non-paid listings because our brand, because of our authority, because of the way we structured our website and our off-page authority. So we're coming up ahead of the competition. And again, this is all part of their growth engine for lawn and landscape companies. You've got SEO, local service ads, retargeting, online directories, pay-per-click, social media app management, marketing automation, driving repeated referral business, but it's all part of that bigger picture. So we're going to get into it. I just want to ask for those of you on with me live, have your webcams on, engage with me in the chat, close out your other distractions. Let's be in the moment. Let's focus on this. I'm going to give you some great new information and we're going to get right into it. So on today's session, predominantly what we're going to focus on is the latest updates with the Google algorithm, how AI answer engines, GEO, AEO, whatever you want to call it, are shaking up the market, the things you might have put in place in the past that could actually be hurting your online presence today, and then our new formula on how to rank your company using SEO and AI ranking strategies. Real quick, before we get in too deep and we get rolling here, for anyone who hasn't met me yet, I'm Scott Coullard with webSURGE Landscape Marketing. Our agency has been around for over 2 decades now. But before I personally ever touched digital marketing, I was out on a lawn crew for about 6 years, mowing, trimming, dealing with the weather, grinding through the summers like many of you guys have. And as a company, we actually started off as what's called a generalist marketing agency. That just means we would work with everyone from dentists to moving companies to industrial companies. But as time went on, we noticed something. The systems we built were driving incredible results for lawn and landscape companies. That's when we made the decision to actually go all in on the green industry. So since then, we've worked with landscape businesses across the country, and we've seen what actually works to generate quality leads and steady growth. Not theory, not something I read in a blog post somewhere. Everything we share with you today comes straight from that experience. What we've tried, what we refined, and what consistently delivers results. And then as we go along, I'll actually share real examples so you can see how those strategies play out in the field and how you can apply them to your own company. And this is what we do day in and day out, setting up websites, doing the SEO, creating content, driving page search strategies, tracking that return on investment, really driving the results. And if at any point during the webinar, you're like, hey, you know what, Scott, this sounds great. I just want to talk with you about how you can do this for my company. We'd love the opportunity to chat with you. To schedule that, you can go to wslandscapemarketing.com/schedule. Our team will drop that in the chat here too. So it's there if you want to take advantage of that. We'll do a complete review of your current website, your online rankings, your digital marketing strategy, see if we can help, leave you with a couple of tips just to take away, and then see if we'd be a good fit to serve you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the new SEO and GEO formula. And I really want to start by asking, does SEO even really matter, right? In the grand scheme of things, with search engines constantly changing the way things work, with answer engines and AI coming into play, with more and more local service ads and paid results coming up, is this like an outdated thing that we shouldn't even talk about in today's market? And I want to tell you, SEO really does matter. If we search right now on Google, which still the lion's share of your customers and potential customers are doing, they're going to Google on their smartphones or on their desktop, and they're searching your city lawn care, your city landscaping, your city lawn mowing, your city tree service, your city irrigation installation. They're actually typing in those keywords, and this is what they're seeing, right? They're seeing local service ads, and then they're seeing a map. They're seeing some organic listings. They're seeing some paid listings. And statistics as of today still tell us that 80 to 90% of the clicks on that page are going to the organic non-paid listings that we're talking about today. They're going to the map. They're going to the organic SEO results. Despite the fact that we've got local service ads, despite the fact that we've got paid ads, still most of the clicks go to those top 3 map listings and or the first handful of results on the page, and 60 to 70% go to the first 3 organic listings. When we look at our clients and who's ranking well, as an example, if we search East Syracuse landscaper, the client we work with in that market is Hunter Springs. You can see they come up in local service ads, the map listing. They're also coming up in ChatGPT, which is a generative search result as a recommended company. More important, we'll get into the specifics of this stuff as we go, but answering the question, does SEO really matter? This is their tracking report right here. And we're really maniacal about tracking the data and knowing how much we're spending and what the actual results are. So this is an average month for them, spending about $4,500 in online marketing. That's our management fee plus Google ad spend. And then we track how many leads they get for that. So that's 175 leads for a $4,500 investment. That's about $25.86 per lead, really, really solid in this industry. And then if we drill down and say, where are those leads coming from? There's 25 from the blue organic listings on Google, 53 from paid ads, and then 97 from the organic map listings. And what I really want to call your attention to with those numbers is the lion's share of these leads are coming from the organic sources, right from that Google map, right from those organic blue listings, which could be a mix of if they searched on Google, they saw a page, or they searched on ChatGPT and were directed to the website. It all kind of fits into this organic equation. So that's 70% of the lead flow is organic. If they didn't rank well, if they didn't have a known brand, if things weren't coming up for those types of results, that's the 70% of the opportunities that they missed. So hopefully that makes the point that yes, it still matters. SEO still matters. We still need to come up because your customers are still clicking there and they're going to call more likely than not from an organic source than a paid source. So that leads to the next question as we dig deeper into today's workshop. What is AEO? What is GEO? And how does all of this stuff play in? And so I briefly touched on this, but again, AEO is answer engine optimization. And that focuses on creating content that answers customers' questions on platforms like Google Voice, AI generated responses, Alexa, stuff like that. So if you were to ask Siri, Google Voice, and Alexa, which I'm sure now my Alexa is going to freak out and want to chime in, you're optimizing for those things, those platforms. And I don't think the application on that is really as applicable as what we're going to talk about now with GEO. But AEO, in order to come up for those voice assistants, you have to answer questions. You have to have proper schema code formatting on your website. And there's some specific directories that you feed yourself to. From what I can tell, there's not a ton of search for that. And I need a lawn care company, I need landscaping. More relevant and prevalent in today's market is GEO, which isn't geographic marketing, it's generative engine optimization. And that's the practice of optimizing your content to rank and get visibility on AI powered search engines and chat tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Google Gemini, Perplexity, Microsoft Copilot, which is Bing Chat, and then other large language models. And then if you look at all these platforms today, ChatGPT is the most common. And again, if you guys haven't mentioned in the chat already, if you're using any of these tools, which is the one that you kind of gravitate towards, I'd love for you to share that in the chat real quick. Dread Pirate Dorn says Claude, excellent. Mackenzie says ChatGPT. We personally use a mix of Claude and ChatGPT most often at our agency and personally. All right, thanks for sharing that. So, how does ChatGPT serve local results in today's market? I just want to get into this with you guys real quick. If we go to ChatGPT, hopefully you've played around with this a little bit. You're familiar with the technology. Let's just go to ChatGPT on the slide here. I would say most people, when they use ChatGPT, are using their phone. They've got the app installed and they're actually speaking into it as opposed to typing in. But you might speak to ChatGPT and say, I'm looking for a landscaper in Oakdale, Minnesota. Who would you recommend? If we run that search, ChatGPT is going to go back. It's going to search the web and it's going to come back with its recommendations. And it's pulling in a variety of companies here. And you can see here, LNG Landscapes. This is one of the companies we have the opportunity and the pleasure to work with. They're coming up in the predominant result for this particular search. Sometimes ChatGPT will serve more of a map result. Sometimes it's a bulleted list with a featured result like this. In this case, it's referencing their Google reviews and rating, which tells us there's that direct correlation between your actual SEO strategy, how well you come up organically on Google, how well you come up on maps, and how well you come up on ChatGPT search. So they're all kind of connected, right? This is literally pulling in their Google map listing information. So having that proper local SEO strategy, which we'll be talking about here in a minute, that improves the probability of coming up in this result here. And this is kind of a little interesting feature down here. So what we can do is click down here on the sources button and see what the actual sources are. And this is going to say, where ChatGPT is getting its information for the result. And it's coming from things like Better Business Bureau. It's coming from LNG's website here, which we built to rank in these, and it's coming also from their county's chamber website and a host of other local directories. So in this particular case, it's looking at the citation references and their website. It's looking at what you would consider a citation, and that's just a mention of your company name, address, phone number on one of those free online profiles. And it's pulling the companies that are prominent in those results. So if you look at this scenario, we want to make sure we're optimizing our Google map listing. We also want to make sure we're taking advantage of those citations, those free and or paid listings online. Make sure we're claimed in there. Make sure we've optimized that listing. Like if it gives us the opportunity to add photos, if it gives us the opportunity to fill in a bigger description, if it gives us the opportunity to generate a couple of reviews in there, if we can make ourselves stand out in the top 3 to 5 citations that ChatGPT is in this case pulling from, then we improve our probability of being the company that comes up in this result, right? And the other cool thing we can do when it comes to ChatGPT here is you can ask, what was your criteria for the recommendation? And it's actually going to give us that answer. So think about the keywords somebody might type in, they might speak into their phone or whatever, and then think about the criteria that ChatGPT tells us, or that Claude tells us, or that Perplexity tells us. In this case, it's saying local relevance and service range to the location, Oakdale, Minnesota. These companies that it listed are all close by. Online reviews and reputation. So your online reviews, we've always said when it comes to ranking on Google Maps, that's mission critical, your online reputation and reviews. So even ChatGPT is looking at your online reviews too. It seems like they're looking at Google predominantly, but they're also looking at those other citation sources too. And then the professionalism of the website. Does the website look good? Does the website have proper content? Is the website authoritative? Having a great website that's properly structured, that's professionally designed. Obviously, that helps with conversion, which we covered on another one of these trainings, but it helps with authoritativeness, responsiveness, and availability. So really interesting to see what ChatGPT is looking at and the fact that these results now exist. And I can tell you, some people might say, well, I don't think anyone's really going to look on ChatGPT for anything like this. And I can tell you firsthand with our tracking, we've been able to track client leads coming through AI results, like these, and we see that trend continue to grow. So hopefully that helps explain this a little bit. Type a yes or a one into the chat if it was helpful to walk through the search results and how they're coming up in AI, and how you can kind of think about why they're serving certain companies in the results there. All right. Okay, so that's pretty cool to see that, but we want to make sure we're thinking about this. Maybe the trends are moving in this direction, but at the same time, we don't want to freak out about this. We don't want to say, okay, I guess SEO is dead. I guess Google is a thing of the past. I just need to focus on generative search results. Here's still the reality. In today's market, Google has approximately 2.5 million monthly searches for lawn and landscape services. ChatGPT only has like 20,000 to 80,000. So it's a small percentage of the total search volume. People are looking for lawn and landscape services today. That number is probably going to trend higher in the years ahead, but we still want to be focused on Google. We still need to make sure we're coming up in the map and the organic listings. But at the same time, let's not sleep on where things might be headed. As more and more people start to use these tools, as they kind of grow adoption and understand them, let's make sure we're coming up in those particular results. So bottom line, Google is still king for direct service-based searches, but those generative engine optimization-driven platforms are catching up fast, especially for FAQ-style educational comparison queries and questions. So if we're thinking outside of just the head term, somebody typing in lawn care near me or best landscaping company in my area, and we're feeding in information about things like the times of year you offer various services, the specific materials you recommend in your local area, things like that. Like when we create that kind of content and we post it on our website and then we syndicate it out, which we'll be talking about here in a minute, we give ourselves an opportunity to rank or come up for in the search engine results for a vast slew of keywords on the long tail, on the longer end of the spectrum, which could be a significant amount of search volume. Many users are bypassing the traditional engines and they're using the AI tools directly for service recommendations. So basically, you need to show up in both places, right? That's the bottom line. That's the point I want to make in this particular section. Yeah, if you guys have any trouble with the workbook there, you do need to be logged into one of your Google accounts to be able to copy it. And if you don't have one of those, just shoot us a message in the chat that you don't have one, and we can make sure to email you guys just like a PDF after the fact. That's no problem at all. So again, another great example of this, right here, if we go to Google and we type in landscaper Oakdale, we've got LNGs coming up in the map listings here at the very top spot. Then if we search on ChatGPT, which I just showed you this example a minute ago, you can see they come up right there as a prominent recommended company in that particular city, in the city where they serve. And so, yes, it's a long-winded saying SEO still matters. Hopefully I made that point. Type yes that I made that point right, that SEO still matters. We're still looking at the data. We're seeing that, yeah, it's not just nice to show up from like an ego play, but it really makes a difference in the amount of leads, sales, and ultimately the amount of book jobs you're going to get within your company. So with that said, knowing right now the main thing these AI search engines are looking for local specifically, is SEO specific information. Like if you're coming up on Google, chances are we're going to be coming up on those generative engine results too. So these are the categories. We've got the technical side. What are we doing with foundation, indexation, crawling, broken links, 3-0 run redirects, all that fun stuff, right? On page, so the actual pages on your website, the way we structure the titles, the H1s, the meta descriptions. And that's usually what lawn and landscape companies are thinking about. What does my website look like? Does it have the proper stuff in place? But also really massively important is what's happening off page, off the website. So it's your backlinks, which are just other websites that point to yours. It's your mentions and citations, which we talked about those directories. It's your social proof, like reviews and your popularity. It's your brand recognition in the marketplace. Because at the end of the day, it comes back to expertise, authority, and trust. And that's where if you've got like 70 different lawn and landscape companies competing for the same keywords in your market, and they've all got the technical, they've all got the on page, they've all got the off page in terms of links and citations and PR and syndication, the tiebreaker is going to be the best experience metrics. So core metrics like page speed, how fast does the website load, mobile responsiveness, does it come up on your phone and does it look pretty good on the phone still, no annoying pop-ups. We really want to optimize for trust in today's market when it comes to ranking too. And again, I can show you a lot of examples of lawn and landscape companies, maybe in a lot of cases, not the biggest company in the market, right? But still coming up first because we've got this dialed in. We set up their on page, their off page, the expertise, the authority, and the trust. Now, separate to that whole conversation on ChatGPT, and I'm not going to read this out because I showed you exactly what ChatGPT is saying from the horse's mouth, right? But getting on ChatGPT, getting ranked on there, it's things like your customers' ratings, years in business, service range, are you available, your local presence, the actual website and the content on the website, certifications and licenses, and making sure those are listed. Again, in the workbook, which we provided, you've got a checklist, you've got the details on this. So if you want to go back and read those bullets more closely in your workbook, that's available to you. Excellent. All right. So the new search everywhere optimization formula is pretty simple. As we figure out what the most important keywords are based on your services, based on your service area, based on how many people are actually searching for those things, you can use tools like Google Keyword Tool, WordStream, SpyFu, Google Ads Keyword Planner to figure out what those keywords are. Again, if you schedule a time with us, we've got this data, like we look at this data day in and day out. We can really contextualize it based on your market and just tell you what those most important keywords are. Then you want to set up a great website with really unique pages targeting each one of those keywords, where there's keyword permutations that we can come up. And really we do that by real simply having a page for each one of the services you offer, and then a page for each one of the cities you operate in. So not just your main city, but also the surrounding cities, towns, and neighborhoods too. And then answer the common questions. You can use text, you can use image, use video, and then proper schema code on the website. And I know with video, we get some pushback on sometimes because that feels like a lot of work, but you've got compensated employees in the field, and they're doing this kind of work every single day. We just need you to put a process in place where that employee starts to document what's happening in the field. And I don't think it's necessarily all of your employees, right? If you've got 5, 10 employees, I don't think all 5 of them are going to be doing this all the time, but we can always put a super employee in play. Like, look, Johnny is really confident. He loves to do videos. We're going to make him our super employee. He's going to get paid a little extra every time he shoots a video in the field, and just talk about the job, talk about the problem that was out there, talk about why the customer chose you versus the competition. Get that video loaded onto the website with proper schema code, with a transcript of what was happening, and then turn that into an actual rich piece of content that will absolutely separate you by miles from the competition. And then we have to optimize the website for user experience, not just for the keywords and for the data, but what's the actual experience when someone gets there? Are they actually clicking around? Are they submitting anything like contact forms? Are they staying on the website? Or are they getting to the website and they're immediately bouncing back? So things you want to look at for are like your site speed, your core web vitals. That all plays heavily into how well optimized your website is. And then we have to optimize the on page stuff. So the things on your website pages, which is proper title tags. That's a little text that's in the browser tab at the top. H1 tags, that's going to be the big text that's kind of prominent on the top of the page. Meta descriptions, and the schema code on the website. Then we've got to build authority too, right? And that's building those links that are on other websites that point to yours, building those citations, so those mentions in those local directories, building the online reviews, getting referenced on those user generated content sites, and then again, finally track the results. That's the new SEO formula. It's just some little new nuance here, some little changes to the way we've probably all been doing SEO for quite some time. And then the GEO side of the equation, the AI ranking side of the equation, is we need to answer questions very clearly. So think about what the problems are. What are the questions your customer asks on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, and then create text-based content, video-based content that we can integrate into the website, into your online profiles. And the most obvious is, let's ask these questions and then answer them on the FAQ part of our Google profile, knowing that speaks very specifically to Google, Google results, Google rich snippets, the Google people also ask section. That's going to get pulled onto the other platforms like ChatGPT too. Structure your headings and your bullet points. AI loves clear formatting when it's reading your website. So H1, H2, H3, bullet 1, bullet 2. There's pretty web design, and then there's properly structured and formatted websites that are easier for Google and these AI engines to see the information in a logical way in the way they expect to consume it. You want to use first party data and expertise. And so it's just a fancy way of saying you're not just copying and pasting from something AI wrote for you for your website, or you're writing fluff content about the benefits of a service that everyone else is writing about, but you're actually speaking from the in the trenches content and experience. Talk about why you use one type of paver over the other. Speak to the unique limitations or recommendations you have for your local area, like the best types of grass or plantings in your area, or maybe you don't recommend plumbing for your outdoor kitchens because of the winter freeze. It's too hard for that. Again, getting mentioned and cited online, that's using digital PR. That's also reaching out to local groups you might be part of or you should be part of. To create informational content, getting people to write things about you, which reference your company, name, address, phone number, which builds your authoritativeness and likeliness to be pulled into those types of search results. And then there's ways we can feed more of that content about your company through seeding questions, through seeding the answers they give, and testing with ChatGPT or Claude and refining to see what's working best. So again, we have a checklist for you. I don't want to read this bullet by bullet. I don't want to bore you guys to tears. But here's the big picture of what we want to do. We want, again, individual pages for each of the services and cities you serve. We want to properly claim our Google business profile. There's a whole strategy around that. We want to be creating authority by putting out new content. in terms of posts, in terms of actual pages on the website. And then we want to build our authority through signaling. I'll talk a little bit about how we do that to signal that we're the authoritative lawn and landscape company in the market. Okay, I don't want to get into too much of the minutia. I'm going to share some live examples. But again, to access that workbook, you can go to wslandscapemarketing.com/SEO. And again, for anyone on with us live, just hit us up in the chat. We can get you that hard copy PDF. Whether you're looking at this on your own or you want to hand this off to a team member or maybe an agency you're working with, it's just walking you through what is AEO, what is SEO, kind of the key data I've covered here, high level on today's session, but then more importantly, the actual checklist, what do we do on page? What are we going to do with the Google profile? What are we doing with the ongoing content? How are we thinking about GEO and AEO optimization? So you've got that. You've got some examples to reference if that's helpful too. So keywords, common keywords, right? We've got to figure out what the keywords are people typing in. And it's not just lawn care or landscaping, right? In lawn and landscape specifically, there's literally hundreds of keyword permutations and variations that have people searching for them and have commercial intent. And it's worth creating content. It's worth tracking to try and rank in your city and surrounding cities for these particular terms. Things like aeration, overseeding, commercial landscaping, hardscaping, irrigation installation. These here are some of the most common, if you do the service, keywords that we want to make sure we're optimizing and coming up for. What I found though over the years working with you guys, it's one thing to have a list. It's another thing to figure out how do we actually make sure we're coming up in the search engines for them. And so what I'm going to offer to do is a complete analysis for you guys. If you're on today's session, you can just go to that wslandscapemarketing.com/schedule. We'll run that report for you. We'll give you the list of keywords, specific to your area and your actual services. And then we'll be able to show you visually, here's where you're coming up in those searches. Shortcut that process because you could spend a week doing that, or if you just give us 45 minutes of your time and we'll give you the complete report you can run with, no charge or anything, just complimentary. So that's wslandscapemarketing.com/schedule. All right, so I'm just going to get into some of the details here for the formula here. On site, we want a strong website with good user experience. Some of that in today's market is leveraging multimedia to improve on-page time and to separate yourself from AI-generated content. I kind of harped on this earlier, but it's worth bringing up again. In today's market, your marketing team or the agency you hired is probably using ChatGPT or Claude, and they're saying, create this content so we can put it on the site and have these services. So the internet is getting flooded with AI-generated content, and some of it is good and some of it is really bad. And so one of the things you can do to stand out from the AI, again, is to create video. And I think the strength of your brand and the strength of your multimedia is what's going to set you apart over the next 3 to 5 years. So practically speaking, if you can embrace the idea of creating video out in the field, hey, I'm going to this home, there's this problem they have, I'm here at the irrigation system and it's not working, here's the issue, here's why it's not working, this is what we're going to do, and then talk to the customer and create that type of content, you will absolutely stand out. Or for the irrigation page on your website, just record a quick talking head video kind of describing the service and your process, maybe the times of year that you guys do blowouts and things of that nature. For some of you with larger teams, again, the best way to do this would to anoint that super crew member. So if you've got 5 crew members in the field, maybe one of them has a bigger personality, kind of already enjoys social media, maybe already does videos on YouTube and things like that. Just because they gravitate to it, you can tell them they'd have a talent for it. I'd encourage you to say, hey, look, you're going to be our super crew member or our media tech in the field, and I want you to create this type of video content. We're going to maybe give that person some type of increase in compensation or a per job site fee that they get for capturing that video. Train them on what kind of video you want, how you're going to use it, and how you're going to put it all together. And that, again, is going to separate you from an SEO perspective, but also from a brand in the marketplace. Again, pages for each of the services you offer. So that's if we do mowing, if we do fertilization, if we do hardscaping, if we do irrigation, one actual distinct page on the website for each one of those. Don't just lump them all into one services page. You want pages for each of the cities that we operate in. So if you're in Miami, for instance, we would have the whole website anchored around Miami lawn and landscape services. But in Miami, if we serve a 25 to 30-mile radius, there's a lot of little sub-cities and sub-towns. There's Kendall, there's Palmetto Bay, there's Pinecrest, there's Miami Beach, right? All these cities and towns. And most of your customers don't type in the main city like Dallas or Miami. They're going to type in Kendall lawn care in Kendall. So we want to make sure we have pages for those smaller cities and those smaller towns that are unique content that are properly optimized for those cities, because that can be a really great source of high quality traffic that converts at a high level, assuming we can rank for those surrounding cities and surrounding towns. And the way we do that is by having those particular pages on the site. So a page for each of those cities that you serve. And it's really important we use unique content for this. We can't just copy paste the same thing for every city and then just change the city name. It really has to be unique so it stands out in the market. Keywords, I don't want to get too technical, but again, titles and H1s, meta descriptions that sell the click, right? We want to be blogging on an ongoing basis, using digital PR to build our authority. And then we have to focus on site speed. This is a big part of user experience, mobile and desktop. How quickly your website comes up is mission critical. And in a little bit here, I'm going to ask you guys if anyone is willing to share their website into the chat. And I'll kind of do a real quick mini audit on the speed of it and maybe give you some tips for improvement. So if you want to share that, go ahead and get that ready. All right, so a great tool for the site speed, if you just want to check the site speed, is something called Page Speed Insights from Google. It's free. You can find this at pagespeed.web.dev. You can put your URL in there and it'll show you exactly how quickly your website loads. And your website needs to come up quick, right? Otherwise, there's going to be a problem. So again, if anybody wants to volunteer their website to check, feel free to drop that into the chat. In this example here that I'm sharing, the screenshot, this is an example report in the tool that we just recently ran. This is a really good example, right? It's 95. There's greens across the board. There's that little accessibility ticker in there. And that just means how easy is it for someone that's hearing impaired, visually impaired to use the site. That agentic browsing score on the far right over there, that's a new one from Google, just within the past couple of months here. That's how well AI can crawl your website. And you obviously want to get that dialed in to show up in AI searches. So Himmel's here, which is a website we built, has a 3 out of 3 here, which is what you want. Again, it's really important for your site to come up quick. All right, excellent. Got some examples here. Thanks for sharing. I'll grab Sandra's example here. Let me just change my screen around so I can pull that up. Bear with me 1 minute. Okay, let's go to pagespeed.web.dev. We're going to plug this in. Sometimes this takes a little bit to run. So I'm going to look at the website while that's kind of thinking about it. And we'll just talk about some SEO things too. So thanks for sharing this. Okay, perfect. So let's look on the website, on the homepage. Just going to absorb.
Very ugly. Ew.
Oh, you're good.
This is okay. It's white. This is totally an AI generated website. It's super basic.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, I'll give you some pointers here. So there's a couple of, for the homepage specifically, there's a couple of principles we like to think about. And there's kind of 2 rules I like to harp on for the website. We want to talk about and then where we do it, what we do and where we do it. So I like that you've called out tree services. So it's very important to call that out.
Oh, he didn't build that. Somebody else did. Oh.
And then if you guys have other services that are, in addition to tree services, maybe have stump grinding or things like that, I would make sure to list anything else out that you do on the page. One thing that definitely stands out is the where you do it aspect. So up here in the page title in that little browser tab up top, you want to make sure you have your city name and the state abbreviation up there. It's super important to add that. That can actually kind of start your rankings a little bit. It sounds silly adding just a little bit of text up there, but it really helps. And then I would sprinkle that throughout the rest of the page. And then I'd also recommend another section that talks about, I like this right here. So you have talk about the service area. So this is really good. This is where I'm talking about what we do. With each of these, I would link off to their own individual city page. So for example, you'd have a Scottsdale city page that kind of repeats talking about all your services, but then it talks about Scottsdale and maybe some local landmarks and things of that nature. Let me just grab one more thing here. Evergreen tree. Let me just check the Google profile. How you doing over here, page? Okay, we're good. That's loaded. I'll look at that in just a second here. Okay. I'm not seeing a Google business profile come up. You might have it. If you don't have one, I definitely get signed up for Google business profile. Sometimes they're just a pain and they don't come up. Um, but you definitely want to make sure you have a Google business profile. They're free. You want to make sure your physical address is listed on the profile. As you set up the Google business profile, it sort of steers you away from that. It's kind of steers you in the direction of you should set your business up as a service area business. And that's a lie from Google. You should not set it up like that. You need to set it up more like it's a brick and mortar location where you actually list your physical address. Because if you don't have your physical address on the Google profile listing, you're basically ineligible to show up in the map results for, something like tree removal service Phoenix. So these are the map results right here. And all these companies have their address listed on their profiles. You can kind of see some of the addresses popping up right here. So just make sure you get a Google profile pulled up with the address listed. Looks like Page Speed Insights did finish loading for us here. So let's scroll down. There's a couple of views that you can look at in here. There's a mobile view and a desktop view. You really want to focus on the mobile side. That's really how Google grades the website, is from the mobile first perspective. So we got 43 performance. So you definitely want to improve this. You don't have to get this to 100. That's kind of a misconception. The higher you get the score, the harder it is to increase it, because you have to increase these little nitpicky things. If you get it to at least an 80 or above, you're going to be golden. And so if you run your sites through this, it's going to give you specific recommendations here. So if you work with a website designer or a website host, you might be able to pass some of this stuff along to them and they'll take care of it. There will be things like this one here: improve image deliverability. There's a couple different ways. You can either decrease the size of some of the images. That might be what this one is suggesting. You can also use different types of images. So I'm sure most people are familiar with like a JPEG or a PNG. There's new types of images that are called WebP that Google really likes. They load real fast, and you can get that set up on your website to run with those. So I would talk to your host or who built your website, and they can kind of help compress some of that stuff down. Let's see if we got another example in here. All right, Mackenzie, we got Atlanta turfgrass. Okay, let's pull that up. Okay, so looks like you guys are a landscape supply company. So we generally work more with the contractors, installation, things of that companies of that nature, but I can certainly take a look still and give you guys some pointers here. The site came up kind of pretty fast when I first opened it, so that's a good sign. All right, let me look at your products here. We do work with some garden centers and things, so I can definitely speak from that perspective. So yeah, landscapers, plug your ears, because this is going to kind of apply more to the e-commerce side rather than the contractor side. Clicking onto the sod page here. So we got a bunch of different sod varieties listed, which is great. I like this a lot. And I like seeing they each have their own page. I would kind of consider this like a category page. So you've got, it lists all your sod. This page is a really good opportunity for you guys to build out further and really speak about, why working with your company is really good. Maybe speak to some of the considerations in Atlanta there. Speak to like when a good installation time would be, right on this sod page with listing all the other products, because these category pages will tend to rank very well on Google for things like, this might not technically be an e-commerce website, but it's sort of structured like e-commerce because it has products and everything. Let's drill into one of the products here. I like this page a lot. So this has some good detail about it. Contact us button, that's pretty good. All right, let's take a peek at here. Okay, so yeah, definitely some room for improvement on the page speed side. So 55, again, I would want to see this at an 80 or above, coming down to what it's pulling out here. Images is always one of the first things to think about. this image here looks very large, so I would definitely check this one out. You might be able to compress this one down. Let's just see real quick here what that image is. Yeah, it looks like it's a pretty large image. Let me just zoom into. Yeah, so if you can see, how large this image is, it's actually loading this full thing on the site. So there's little ways where you can take this and kind of shrink the size of it. So when you upload it to the website, it's a lot smaller. And then there's a little tool called tinypng.com. It's got these pandas all over. It's kind of cute. And you can actually drag and drop your images into it. It doesn't like this because it's actually too big even for this to handle. But if you decrease the size of that image down a little further and then drag it into a tool like this, that'll drop the size of it down and that'll help the site load a lot faster. But yeah, then category pages for each of your products, I'd build it out comprehensively like this. Mulch and pine straw. I like this, maybe expand the content more. Oh, I like this section down here. Pine straw, I'm not sure. I know our clients in Atlanta love to push this. Pine straw sells really well out there, so maybe make a dedicated page to pine straw if that's something you guys offer a lot. Yeah, those are some tips though. Hopefully that's helpful. But definitely some room for improvement on the site. And then for both sites, again, I paid attention to this new agentic browsing one. It's going to give you some tips. It's going to ask you to add this thing called an LLMXT file. And that's just a fancy way of guiding some of the AI tools to understand information about your website. So let me just pull up one of our clients' versions of that. So there's this kind of code looking page on LNG's site here. And basically any AI platform can come in here and crawl through this. And we just feature the prominent pages here. And we say, hey, ChatGPT or hey, Claude, these are the most important pages on the site. These are the ones to check out. So this llms.txt file is definitely something for you guys to consider adding to the site too. Your host or web developer should be able to help with that from the AI perspective. All right, thank you both for sharing those with us. Let me jump back to the presentation here. Really appreciate you guys participating. All right, we should be good now. So again, if you run your website through that and you get a low score, it could be the website hosting. That might be slowing you down. You might need to compress the images like I kind of spoke to. The actual website code can actually impact it too. So it might need to be redeveloped in certain spots. It might be built inefficiently where it's trying to pull up, for instance, all the products on a page that only needs one product or something of that nature. So digging a little deeper into that Himmels example that I shared from that screenshot before, these guys are a lawn and landscape company based in the Pasadena, Maryland market. They're also a garden center too. The homepage very clearly signals to Google what the company is about with its headings. When it comes to writing your homepage and getting it found on Google and AI search, I mentioned it when I walked through those examples before. You always want to speak to what you do and where you do it. What you do and where you do it. So you can see here, there's sections on their homepage, their main website page, sections for maintenance, enhancements, the hardscaping side, then an additional section to feature their bulk materials. A little further down the page, we mention the main areas they serve, and then we actually link off to the rest of their individual city pages. Then if we drill further into the website, here's 2 pages on the site. Again, you want a page for each of your services in each city you serve. The first example on the left is their outdoor kitchen services page. It goes into the real nitty-gritty details, things like whether they build custom or use kits, what fuel types they offer, things of that nature, very specific details to their company. The second example is one of their area pages for Annapolis, Maryland. This page touches on some local details about Annapolis, and it speaks to all the different services Himmels offers. With this approach here, we can come up for a lot of these surrounding cities and towns because we have these pages on the actual website, and a lot of your competitors aren't taking the time to build these. They come up organically, they come up in ChatGPT. And what is the data behind the lead flow for Himmels here? They invest about $4,600 a month in online marketing. That's our management fees, paid ads, etc. We track 626 leads in this particular month. If you divide that out, that's $7.32 per lead. And a lot of that's coming from the organic SEO results they get. 472 SEO leads from Google Maps and 116 SEO leads from organic search. So SEO definitely still matters. Hopefully it's good to see these examples and kind of see how this plays out in the real world, what we want to look for. I try to do some visuals here too. Keyword in the title, that's the little browser tab at the top there. Keyword in the H1, that's going to be the big prominent main text on your site. Great content on the page that actually speaks to the customer, answers the question, has proper formatting, and it doesn't speak to benefits like build your outdoor dream space, but it talks about those specific details that are unique to your company, like when do you offer aeration, when do your spring and fall cleanups run, do you do biweekly mowing or things of that nature. That's the on page, right? The website itself. Getting ranked on Google Map then is really about getting your citations and being referenced across the web and all the online directories. You want to have a properly claimed and optimized Google business profile, doing the on-page stuff, the more technical stuff, as well as that basic content stuff on the website, and then reviews, getting real reviews from your real customers in your real service area. I'm a big fan of leveraging automation too. So whether you're using a CRM like Jobber, Service Autopilot, Aspire, LMN, whatever your CRM is, making sure that as a job gets completed, a text message and an email goes out. Then whether you're using Nice Job or Customer Lobby or Review Buzz or Podium, just make sure you're integrating that so it automatically happens, and those will automatically request reviews from completed jobs. The clients we integrate that for just get tons of reviews, and those reviews have a huge impact on the way they rank on ChatGPT, as well as on Google and other search engines like that. And then there's off page. Again, I don't want to bore you guys to tears, so I'm going to kind of slam through this real quick. We're going to claim and optimize the Google profile listing. We're going to get lots of citations. If we go back to when we asked ChatGPT what they're looking for, that's really what Google is looking for too. They're looking at these citations, and there's hundreds of different little directories that are local to your market, that are lawn and landscape specific. Some are just even business centric directories that we can get you added to. And when we're in those directories, that passes authority to all the search engines. And then we want to drive our reviews, not just on Google, but on the other platforms too. Build authoritative, relevant links back to the website, so other websites out there are sending links to your website. And then strategic content syndication or digital PR. And that's just putting out content that doesn't just sit on your site, but it actually gets published to local news sites, which then pass authority, which pass citations, and builds your authority and that expertise and trust side of the equation. Again, I promise not to bore you guys to tears. The checklist in the workbook has all the details if you guys really want to get into it. And again, if you'd like our help, we love the opportunity to chat. This is something we're really passionate about. This is something we're really good at. We've got a full team that does this every day, setting up the website, doing the on page, doing the off page. The details matter, and really having the details dialed in makes a huge difference. So you can grab that workbook, or if you'd like, you can schedule a time with us completely free of charge. We'll do a complete review of your current online marketing strategy. We'll show you a really cool local heat map of where you're ranking, and we can take it from there. So if you want to schedule, you can give us a call at 585-497-3448 or go to wslandscapemarketing.com/schedule. And if you scan that QR code with your phone, it'll take you right to that same link. For those of you on with us live, Mark or Becky will drop the link into the chat if they haven't done that already. So we covered a lot of ground on today's session, right? We talked about the new SEO formula. We talked about ranking on AI, GEO and AEO, optimization. We showed a lot of different examples of how lawn and landscape companies can actually rank on ChatGPT, on Google Maps. We showed the data behind, not just, oh, it's nice to rank, but how many actual leads and sales can come from that and how much revenue can be generated on the other end, right? And I hope that you guys all found this useful. If you've got any follow-up questions, feel free to post them in the chat here. Or if you're watching this after the fact, feel free to call us and send us a message or schedule a time through that link. And thanks so much, everybody, for hanging out with us today. We'll hang out for a couple more minutes here in case there's any direct questions. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up. CA asks, if I wanted to use AI to make a simple website and hire your company to do the rest of the marketing, what website do you recommend to do that? For example, I found Lovable. That's a good question. So there's lots of different websites out there. When we specifically work with other companies, we just take the whole thing on because we build an entire system into companies. And so going outside of our system kind of breaks the whole process. So in regards to working with us, we just take care of everything for you guys and makes everything so much more effective. But for you guys personally building any websites out there, Lovable is a really cool tool for sure that you mentioned. WordPress isn't dead. That's what we still develop on. And in fact, they've been releasing lots of cool AI tools for WordPress where you can actually just type into a chat GPT and it'll actually change your WordPress website for you. And then you have all the nice extra features that WordPress has, like you can easily install like review widgets and contact forms and things like that. So the platform really matters less, I would say though, and it's more about the fundamentals we talked about in the workshop today. You know, getting the SEO titles and meta descriptions, having really good content on your website. So make sure you have service pages for each service you do, describe them in great detail, and then pages for each city that you have as well. And then don't sleep on the Google Business Profile. Make sure you get it claimed. Make sure you get an address attached to it. These days, you have to do a video verification typically, where you have to record a little video of yourself going to your business, showing a sign on the door, unlocking the door. It's a pain, but it's very necessary for getting good results on those map listings. So it's kind of showing up on SEO is kind of agnostic of the platform that you use to build the site. Hope that answers the question and is helpful. Yeah, if there's no other questions, really appreciate you guys hopping on, hanging out with us for this hour. Hope you guys all have an amazing day. I hope you finish the summer season strong. We'll talk to everyone again real soon. Bye now.